a country where some very exciting things have been happening, particularly in the drone space. And I think we all look forward to hearing what Julie has to say. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you so much, Gary. I'm delighted to be here. And thank you for the kind introduction. I'm representing Ireland, and I don't know how quite I managed to fit everything into 5 minutes to say what's going on, but please feel free to get in touch afterwards. We've had some really exciting, some exciting times here. So just an introduction to myself, Julie Garland. I'm the founder of AvTrain, where we train and certify drone pilots and operator. We live by the 3Ds. If it's dull, dirty, or dangerous, then a drone should be doing it. And our mission is to encourage prolific drone operations, but to keep the skies safe through the highest standards of training, certification, and regulatory compliance. We're an EASA recognised entity, and we recently announced a collaboration with ANRA Technologies, delivering SORAmate, which is a digital SORA tool. We've launched it in the UK because we designed it around. It was designed originally with Jackie from Hover UAV in Australia for SORA 2.5. And then we brought it in and launched it on SORA Day in the UK on the 23rd of April this year. We'll launch it across the rest of Europe once we have the implementation of SORA 2.5, which I'll talk about a little later on. We're also involved in a CESAR project called ALU Air, which is a digital sky demonstrator based down in Shannon, which is Collins Aerospace, Shannon Airport Group. Future Mobility Campus Ireland are the lead on it, and Managed Drone Deliveries are involved in it, and our ANSP, AirNav Ireland, along with Deep Blue. And the idea of this project is closing off in October, and we did our final demonstrations recently. And the idea of this is looking at beyond visual line of sight flights using ground-based radar systems for identification and flying in and out of controlled airspace. So we launch out from Shannon, from next to Shannon Airport, from our drone port at FMCI, and flying to a small airfield that's in uncontrolled airspace. So it's the entry in and out of from Class C into Class G airspace. So it's been a really interesting project over the last 4 years, as I say, drawing to a close, and we'll be presenting the results of that in October, which is there's an event being run by CESAR in October, demonstrating all of the digital sky demonstrators. And then we also have we've just been awarded funding for the Erasmus project, which is an Air Mob is the name of the project. And these are for COVs, which are Centres of Vocational Excellence. There's 5 countries participating in it. There's Ireland, Spain, Portugal, Italy, and Turkey. And the funding was awarded to set up a COVE in each of those jurisdictions. The partners in Ireland here are TU Shannon, which is the Technical University in Shannon, Future Mobility Campus Ireland, and ourselves as AvTrain. So really excited about that project. Just kicked off in Portugal in May. So the idea of the Centre of Vocational Excellence for Advanced Air Mobility is looking at the gaps and skills gap analysis as we move forward in the industry. A little bit about myself. I'm the president of JEDA, which is the Joint European Drone Associations, where we have 24 national associations representing from 22 different EASA member states. I'm also the vice chair of the JARIS Industry Stakeholders Body Steering Committee. JARIS is the Joint Authorities for Rulemaking on Unmanned Systems. I also sit as the vice chair of the Unmanned Aircraft Association in Ireland and was the founding chair 10 years ago, which we celebrate our 10-year anniversary this year. I sit on the board of advisors for the Estonian Aviation Academy. As you know, I'm the Ireland liaison here for the Advanced Air Mobility Institute. I also sit on the Flight Safety Foundation Autonomous and Remotely Piloted Aviation Capabilities Advisory Committee, along with the UKRI Future Flight Challenge Advisory Board. So we keep ourselves busy and keeping up with what's going on in the industry. Our partnership with, please look up soramate.co. You can log in there. And if anybody wants to walk through the platform and how we've gone about digitizing SORA, please just get in touch over the next few days. As you may know, ANRA Technologies were the first USSP, EASA certified USSP, which was announced at Airspace World. So delighted to partner with them to deliver SORAmate with them. One of the things that has happened since we spoke in January is that in December, EASA voted to accept drones as a stakeholder in the SAB, which is the EASA Stakeholders Advisory Body. And this is it's a huge recognition of our industry and where we're coming from. And it's drones and advanced air mobility, I should say. It's all under the hub of IAM, so Innovative Air Mobility. And this is recognised now as a stakeholder, as a legitimate stakeholder within the SAB. There's various sectors represented within the SAB, things like airlines, pilots, operators, original equipment manufacturers, general aviation, maintenance, repair organisations, air traffic controllers, ANSPs. And what's really interesting is when we sit there as one of the sectors now, we represent all of those, whereas they're individual sectors in conventional and traditional aviation. So that's been really recognised. We've attended 2 plenaries so far since we were welcomed into the community. And I sit as the SAB, JEDA, the Joint European Drone Associations, was awarded the seat, and I sit as the representative there at the SAB level. From the SAB, it flows down to the DCSTG, which is the drones community steering group, and I co-chair that along with Andreas from ASD, and we're setting up various different activity groups there. There's 4 activity groups dealing with the open, specific, certified category and airspace integration and use space. So we're just taking on some volunteers for those and the lead for those. And then we have a full drones community. So anybody from EASA member states, please get in touch about becoming involved in that and making sure that you're actively involved in our future regulatory environment. We've got a direct input to the TEBs, which are the task forces set up by EASA, and the technical board with task forces around specific regulatory changes. And some reports that have been published recently as well. We had, I'd mentioned in January, the Drone and Urban Air Mobility Strategy for Dublin City Council, which I co-wrote with Philip Butterworth-Hayes, who I believe is up next. And the recommendations that were made in that have now all been implemented, which is great to see when you are involved, as heavily involved in writing a report like that, to see the actual the recommendations that are made being implemented. Another report that was just very recently published, and this holds huge credibility in that the writers of this report were Eamon Brennan, who is the former CEO of the Irish Aviation Authority and also of Eurocontrol, and Joe Gill, who is with Good Bodies, is the aviation consultant with Good Bodies. And they consulted with 33 aviation leaders globally, mostly Irish, but global leaders, including myself. I was very delighted to be asked to contribute. And they wrote this Pathfinder for Irish aviation, which they've strongly been promoting. To look, Ireland has always punched well above its weight in a global perspective, and it's about trying to continue to do that. So they looked at all island policy, restructure of planning and noise regulations, quadrupling the amount of qualified commercial pilots, expanding maintenance repair organisations on the island, and how to enhance our aircraft leasing sector. There's a longer list then, which goes on to talk about drones and IAM capabilities, including infrastructure leasing, cybersecurity, AI, education, and funding mechanisms. And then the third report that's been published that's of interest, real interest this year, is this Skyward Bound. This was launched at the Paris Air Show. It was written with FMCI. Again, we collaborated on this report, and we launched this with them at the Beta Technology stand with our CEO and COO of the Irish Aviation Authority. Kyle was there with us, and followed by a very pleasant dinner at the Irish Embassy in Paris with CEOs from ourselves, FMCI, Beta Technologies, Vertical Aerospace, Hummingbird, Enterprise Ireland, and various others at the Irish Embassy. So that report makes interesting reading as well. Again, it's how Ireland is putting itself forward as a leader, but how to try and retain that position as well as we go forward. Some article events and interviews that we've done. We did the ANRA Huddle earlier this year, where we talked about SORA 2.5, digitisation, how we go about. I did an article with Philip again for the unmanned airspace, talking about EASA and EASA resources and how we need to be put back up onto the top of the agenda. I believe since we've that article, there has actually been a move to a degree. Just did a recent article for ZAG as well, and also the Vertical Space podcast. And we also did a SORA-Mate webinar discussing how we've digitized SORA and how we go about getting access to that. And also at our JEDA General Assembly, we signed a memorandum of cooperation with the European Aerospace Science Network. And so we'll be supporting them at their conference coming up in Madrid later this year. And just to give you a very short update, and I know this is going to be available to you afterwards. So with regards to the EASA regulation, obviously in Ireland, we're a part of EASA. SORA 2.5, which was went for just a local consultation with regards to the EASA changes because it had been consulted at JARS level. That's due to be published in September, the final draft of that. So with an implementation date, with a pretty immediate implementation date, and then each state will have a rollover period of time for operators to convert over on their next renewal from SORA 2.0 to SORA 2.5. this is where I mentioned about getting involved at the SAB level and at the DC SDGs and the activity groups that are going on. There's a big amendment to the regulation coming towards the end of this year into the start of next year, which will be published as an NPA at the end of 25 or beginning of 26. And there's an opportunity now to guide what that NPA will be in the subsequent opinion. EASA are very much looking at simplification workshops, how to go about simplifying the drone regulations. We were in Cologne for 3 days, 2 weeks ago, looking at simplification, particularly around predefined risk assessments and standard scenarios, and what standard scenarios should be included in the notice of proposed amendment. That, obviously the regulation takes time to change, so therefore get involved now. Some of the statistics there from December 2024, which we didn't have it for the last update, but we've in excess of 2 million registered operators, 1.8 million remote pilot certificates. There's more than 3,600 operators using SOAR risk assessments and PDRAs, and it's only 35 SAIL 3. So we're still way behind where we'd expect it to be from a SAIL 3 point of view. But there are the LUC operators, which is the Light Unmanned Aircraft Systems Operator Certification, which is the equivalent of the airline certification for operators. There's still about 33 of those across Europe. And that is it from me. So a whistle-stop tour of what's going on in Ireland. There's a lot more going on. I have a very brief introduction to it. So there's so much more going on, particularly with Mana drone delivery and their expansion across Europe and various other operators. And we've been attracting, both heavy lift delivery drone companies, Wing are here as well, and multiple other really interesting things going on. So it's great to be here. Sorry, the update is so brief, but please, my contact details are there. Please reach out and we can talk you through anything else, particularly our SOAR-made platform.
Thank you so much, Julie. It's really good hearing from Ireland. And as you say, Ireland is definitely punching above their weight in this one.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you.